of this recording, along with some other resources, including the slide decks that we'll show today, approximately a week from today's webinar. We are scheduled for an hour and a half. We have a lot to cover today. Feel free to participate with your cameras off or on. You can use the chat feature if you wanted to pose any questions for the presenters or provide any comments or share resources that you may have. We will have a time to talk and have a conversation, so we can address your questions at that point, like a Q&A, or you can also come up on mute at any point to ask a question. You'll see that this is a meeting format just for that very reason. So we'll be hearing from several folks today. First, we're going to hear from Jacob Guinan from Jacob, I know one of your projects is the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative, but Jacob is also with the Chronic Disease Prevention Services at the Oklahoma State Department of Health. Jacob is going to talk to us about the impact that art has on the brain. And then we're going to hear from Diane Powell from the Alzheimer's Association, who's going to talk about their programs there. And following those two presentations, we have with us a panel of artists, and we're going to have a conversation with all of us. And this will include Jacob and Diane, as well as Meg Chang, Jackie Nelson, and Mary Thoma, who have firsthand experience working in arts education settings with people who have dementia. So I am going to turn it over to Jacob, who is going to kick us off.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Erica, and thank you for inviting me here today to talk about dementia and the arts and the impact it can have for families that are dealing with dementia. Like you and I have talked about a lot before, this is something that I'm really interested in. I think, I've seen throughout the years that I've been working with people with dementia and their families that art and music and all the things we're going to talk about today can have a really profound impact on people living with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So again, I'm just really happy to be here today. Like Erica said, I am the program coordinator for the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative, which is the Oklahoma State Department of Health's Alzheimer's and Dementia program. We are funded by the BOLD grant, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end of my presentation and how you can get involved with our programs and services. But just a little bit about my background. I got into Alzheimer's and dementia through the AmeriCorps Vista program. I spent a year with the Alzheimer's Association in the Montana chapter. That's where I did my AmeriCorps service. And I think during that year, I worked to help expand the Alzheimer's Association programs to, veterans and the VA health system up there in Montana. And then after that, I came to work for the Alzheimer's Association in Oklahoma. And that's where I met Diane Powell, and we worked together there. And now I'm with the State Department of Health. So very happy to be here today talking with you all. Our learning objectives for my presentation are we're just going to take a quick look at understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, just to set all of our knowledge at the same place so we all know what they are and how Alzheimer's and dementia are different, because we do use the words interchangeably, but there is a little bit of a difference. We'll also talk about the impact of Alzheimer's and dementia in Oklahoma. And then we'll take a look at some of the benefits of arts programs for people living with dementia and their caregivers. We'll look at some examples of programs, and then we'll learn about the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative and some of the resources that we have for families and program providers. But I wanted to start off by sharing a story about a person with dementia who had a really profound impact on their lives from engaging with the arts. And this is a story about Louise Todd. Louise was a program participant in the Drawing on Memories program in Tulsa that the Alzheimer's Association ran for a long time and is still active in Tulsa. And this art was hanging on the wall in the Alzheimer's Association office for a long time. It currently needs to be reframed, as you might see. I'm sorry about that. I recently moved and the frames did not survive the move, but I still think it tells a great story. And let me move my pictures of everybody here so I can kind of gesture at the screen with my mouse. But you'll see on the left side here is the first art piece that Louise drew when she arrived at the Drawing on Memories program, and it's almost hard to make out, but it was a cry for help from Louise. She couldn't articulate herself verbally. She was dealing with really bad aphasia. She couldn't use words and language the way that she used to be able to, and she was having a hard time. She had some behaviors. She had a lot of communication problems. She wasn't very happy. But they brought her to the Drawing on Memories program, and this is the first thing that she drew. And you'll see here, it took the person who was leading the program a little bit of time to figure out what exactly she was trying to say too. But it says, "Help Louise Todd. She isn't nuts." And once they were able to read that, they realized that that was Louise was asking for help. She was asking really to be treated in a different way. Because what she was saying was, you're treating me like I'm a kid, or you're treating me like there's something like I'm nuts, or there's something, wrong with me. And there is, she's living with dementia, but she's still an adult, and she still, deserves respect and all of this. And so when the care staff saw this and they realized what she was saying, they started treating her differently. And that's one of the things that the arts can do for us too. Not only do they help us express ourselves, but they also help other people see that there is still a person in there and that they're still expressing themselves and they still need to be treated with kindness and compassion. And so after the staff started treating her a little bit differently, after they realized the message she was sending through her art, she started to draw paintings that were more like this that you see on the right, with beautiful flowers, and really starting to enjoy the art programs more and having a higher quality of life. So I really like that impact story, just to give us a good, starting point for how dementia and the arts can work together and create a better quality of life for people. Well, like I said, we'll take a little bit of a look at now at understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, and what they are and how they're different. And dementia is an umbrella term for changes in memory, thinking, and behavior that are severe enough to impact daily life, and it can have a lot of different causes. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. That's why we use it interchangeably so often, and that's why it's the first one that we list here on this slide. And we're still there's still a lot of research to be done on, why some people get Alzheimer's disease and why others don't, and what exactly even is Alzheimer's disease. But we do know that one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease is the formation of plaques and tangles in the brain. These plaques and tangles are built of proteins called amyloid and tau. And when these plaques and tangles form in the brain, they cause brain cells to die, and that leads to tissue loss in the brain and eventually even shrinkage of the brain. So if you look at the brain scan of somebody with a healthy brain and compare it to somebody with Alzheimer's disease, you'll see that their brain is actually shrunken down a significant amount because of their Alzheimer's disease. And then that loss, the damage to the brain causes the symptoms of Alzheimer's that we all know, like memory loss, changes in communication, personality, and behavior. But we think Alzheimer's disease accounts for, 60 to 70% of dementia cases, but there are a lot of other diseases that cause dementia as well. Vascular dementia is another example and tends to occur in people who've had a lot of maybe mini strokes, or they've had a stroke that, caused damage to their brain. It can also occur in people who've had untreated high blood pressure for a long time, and it's caused damage to the blood vessels in their brain. And that's probably the second most common cause of dementia. Dementia from Lewy bodies is another relatively common cause of dementia. Um, it's similar to Parkinson's disease in its symptoms in a lot of ways. People will tend to have a tremor. They'll also tend to have a shuffling gait where they don't lift their feet up all the way when they're walking. And the other hallmark of Lewy body dementia is well-formed visual hallucinations. And hallucinations can happen with any type of dementia, but they do tend to happen more often and be more prevalent part of the disease with Lewy body dementia. And the last one we'll talk about is frontotemporal degeneration. And this one has been in the news a little bit recently. The actor Bruce Willis, his family announced that he's living with this form of dementia. And so we've been talking about this a little bit more recently. But, like Alzheimer's disease and Lewy body dementia, it's a progressive degenerative brain disease, but it starts in a different part of the brain. Our Alzheimer's disease usually starts in the part of our brain that controls short-term memory and holds recently learned information. And so you'll tend to see people with early Alzheimer's tend to have a really hard time with short-term memory. But with frontotemporal dementia, it starts in a different part of our brain, in our frontal lobe of our brain up here. And that tends to control things like our ability to use language the way we want to. And so people with this type of dementia tend to really struggle with aphasia. And then it also controls our sense of propriety, our kind of filter to know what we are allowed to do and aren't allowed to do when we're in public. And so sometimes you do see some behavioral problems from people with frontotemporal dementia as well, even more so than you do see with some of those other types. And this is not an exhaustive list of types of dementia. There are many, many other types of dementia too. These are just the four most common. And it's also important to note that these also aren't mutually exclusive. You can have more than one type of dementia at once, and we call that mixed dementia. And so, like relatively common mixed dementia would be Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia, for example. Those will sometimes go together at the same time. Here in the United States, Alzheimer's is a really big issue. We have nearly 7 million Americans.
Hello.
Oh, hello? Oh, we have nearly 7 million Americans who are living with Alzheimer's disease. And by 2050, this number is projected to rise by nearly 13 million, to nearly 13 million, excuse me. Over 11 million Americans provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's and other dementias. And this is also the most expensive disease in the country. Health and long-term care costs for people living with dementia are projected to reach 360 billion in 2024. We need to update that. I forgot I need to update that slide. And nearly 1 trillion in 2050. But that does really still point out that this is a very expensive disease. A lot of those costs going towards things like hospitalizations and then long-term care costs, especially because that's very expensive. And here in Oklahoma, of course, we are experiencing this impact as well. The Alzheimer's Association will provide us with new facts and figures soon. I believe at the end of this month, we're going to get those. But in 2024, we had 70,000 Oklahomans who are living with Alzheimer's, and we had a lot of caregivers as well who are providing over 100, almost 190 million hours of unpaid care. And this is also a really expensive disease here in Oklahoma, over $500 million spent on Medicaid. And again, most of that going to pay for long-term care costs for people who can't afford it themselves. All right, so now we've talked a little bit about Alzheimer's and dementia and how it impacts us here in Oklahoma. Let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of the arts for people living with dementia. And I really liked this quote that I found while I was doing some research. It was originally from a poem that was actually written by a person with dementia, and then it was co-opted to be part of a study title by Kate. I don't know how to say her last name. Kate, Miss Kate. There. Shall I compare thee to a dose of donepezil? And that's like it's like Aricept or Namenda. It's those drugs that help us think and remember a little bit better. There's some of the drugs that treat the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. And they're being a little bit tongue in cheek here, but they're comparing the benefits of the arts to almost being, like pharmacological benefits. Um, and as you can see here from the second bullet point, all the reviews they've done of psychosocial interventions are beginning to place arts interventions on par with other non-pharmacological approaches to alleviate behavioral symptoms of dementia like agitation and apathy. So there's a lot of research being done into the arts and dementia and the benefits for people. And the research is positive. I mean, it's really showing that this has a measurable benefit for people who are living with dementia. And it's very consistent with the principles of person-centered care, which is really the direction we're trying to move all of our care for people who are living with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. The first benefit that I want to talk about that the arts could possibly have is not even necessarily for people with dementia, but for all of us, and especially for older adults, and is that it might help us reduce our risk of developing dementia. We know that our arts programs provide adults with opportunities for structured social engagement, and research has shown that social engagement is associated with reduced rates of disability and mortality and lowers the risk of cognitive decline. And structured art education programs also provide cognitive stimulation. And there's also been some research that goes to show that if we challenge our mind or if we learn new things, that can also lower our risk of cognitive decline. And so, even before the person develops dementia, just for older adults in general, there are some good benefits for engaging with the arts. But of course, like we said, there are also some behavioral benefits, like that those studies were showing. It does seem to reduce agitation, and it probably helps people just have a higher quality of life. We see them reduce their apathy, they're more engaged in their environment, and it helps with mood and reduces depression. It probably helps a lot with boredom. It probably helps a lot with just not engaging with the world around them. And so we do see those behavioral benefits really coming out, which is great for the caregivers as well, because then they're having to deal with less of that agitation and, some of those challenging behaviors that do arise as well. This is something that I was found really interesting, talking about the social benefits of people with dementia engaging in the arts. And one of the things that it helps with is reducing stigma. When we're out in the community alongside people with dementia and we're engaging with the arts together, like if we're touring an art museum together, or if we are in our community center and we see people with dementia doing an art project together, that does a lot to break down fear and prejudice and help us see that there are people with thoughts and feelings just like we are. They just happen to have this brain disease right now. It also facilitates connection with the family and with their care staff. So art, particularly music, has had a strong association with language skills and connecting socially. And we'll talk a little bit more about music in just a little bit. And one of the most interesting things that I found was that it does help create a personhood and create empathy in the people who are caring for the people with dementia, particularly the professional caregivers. Um, and sorry, I'm also trying to see my slides here. Seeing people with dementia engage with the arts not only changes the mood of the person with dementia, but it alters our perception as onlookers as well. So communication between the carers and individuals with dementia by means of art appears to aid in the reassertion of the individual's identity and others' recognition of personhood, and that leads to greater respect and empathy among the care providers. And I think that even our example at the very beginning of looking at Louise Todd is a good example of how this worked. She was able to communicate something that she wasn't able to communicate verbally to the people who are providing care for her, and it changed their perception of her and then let them provide better care. And so I think that is one of the biggest benefits for art from people with dementia is it changes our perception, not just the benefit for them. Providing benefits to caregivers, like we said, it does help reduce some of that agitation and anxiety that we do know, helps cause some of those behaviors that are really challenging for caregivers to deal with. It also facilitates connection to the loved one, like we said, that they're more able to have social connection when they're engaging with the arts, particularly music. It also provides respite from disease and disability and provides an activity that both parties can provide, kind of like a memory cafe, if you're familiar with that model. Um, and anecdotally, you'll also hear people say that it lets them see that their loved one is quote unquote like still in there. Like if your loved one has been nonverbal for a long time or you haven't been able to connect with them, and then you finally see, a little bit of light come back in their eyes and they're able to engage with a piece of music, or they're able to do something where they're engaging with the outside world in the way they weren't able to before, that is really meaningful for the caregivers as well. And I really we'll look at some examples of programs now, and I really liked this quote as well. Creativity is not dependent on memory. And that's a great point because, you don't need to be able to remember, what happened yesterday in order to be creative and engage with the arts. And that's a quote from Anne Basting. And if you start to do some research into arts and dementia, her name does come up a lot. She's even written a book on this topic as well. So if you're looking for more information on this topic, she's a really good resource. But the first example that I do want to talk about is music, because music can be really impactful for people who are living with dementia. Some of the examples of these programs that are going on here in Oklahoma are programs like Songs by Heart, which is being put on by the Tulsa Opera, in which opera performers go out to memory cares and nursing homes and will do performances alongside with the residents in person. And then Music and Memory is another great program which provides like a personalized music playlist to people who are living with dementia. And then I believe we're also going to hear from one of our panelists, Meg, about another music program that's happening here in Oklahoma. But it helps connect the person living with dementia to their personal history and their identity, especially when it is like a personalized, tailored playlist created for that person. That helps connect them back to their personal history and the things that they like. It, like we were talking about earlier, it facilitates increased social connection, and research has also associated music interventions with better language functioning. And in the video we're about to watch, we'll get a really good example of that. This is a little bit long, but it's about 5 minutes long, but we'll go ahead and watch, we won't watch all of it, but we'll watch about 5 minutes of this video because it gives a really good example of how music can be, the impact that music can have for people living with dementia. We'll watch Henry's story and then we'll have a little bit of discussion afterwards.
Hi, Papa. Hi, Papa.
Huh?
How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm fine.
Wait. Who am I?
I don't know. Wait a minute. I don't know.
Okay, it's Cherry.
How long has he been in the nursing home? Approximately 10 years. He was having seizures, and my mother couldn't handle him at home. Of course, it affected me greatly because he was always, fun-loving, singing, every occasion he would come out with a song, no matter where he was. I remember as a child, he used to walk us down the street, me and my brother, and he would stop and do singing in the rain. He would have us jumping and swinging around poles. He was, he was good. He was always into music, always loved singing, dancing.
His name is Henry Dreyer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking more or less for religious music for him.
Okay.
Because he enjoys music and he always quoting the Bible. So I'd rather have that for him.
We first see Henry inert, maybe depressed, unresponsive, and almost unalive.
Henry.
Yeah?
Henry.
Yes, y'all.
I found your music. You want your music now?
Okay.
Let's try your music, okay? And then you tell me if it's too loud or not.
Then he is given an iPod containing, we know, his favorite music. And immediately he lights up. His face assumes expression, his eyes open wide. He starts to sing and to rock and to move his arms, and he's being animated by the music.
And he used to always sit on the unit with his head like this. He didn't really talk to much people. And then when I introduced the music to him, this is his reaction ever since.
The philosopher Kant once called music the quickening art, and Henry is being quickened, he's being brought to life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the music for 1 second, okay? Just to ask you a few questions. Okay? I'm gonna give it back to you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
The effect of this doesn't stop, because when the headphones are taken off, Henry, normally mute and virtually unable to answer the simplest yes or no questions, is quite voluble.
Henry,
Yeah?
do you like the iPod? Do you like the music you're hearing?
Yes.
Tell me about your music.
Well, I don't have one, I mean.
Do you like music?
Yeah, I'm crazy about music. You play beautiful music, beautiful sound. Beautiful.
Did you play music when you were, did you like music when you were young?
Yes, I went to big dances and things.
What was your favorite music when you were young?
Well, I guess, Cab Calloway was my #1 band guy I liked.
What was your favorite Cab Calloway song?
Oh, I'll be home there for Christmas. Oh, you can count and plan on me with plenty of snow, mistletoe, present wrapped around your tree. Ow!
So in some sense, Henry is restored to himself. He has remembered who he is, and he's reacquired his identity for a while through the power of music.
What does music do to you?
Give me the feeling of love, romance. Figure right now the world needs to come into music, singing. You got beautiful music here. Beautiful, oh, lovely. And I feel the band of love, dream. The Lord came to me, made me holy. I'm a holy man. So he gave me this sound. So they say, I meet you. Say, Rosalie, won't you love me? Rosalie, won't you be sweet and kind?
With this beautiful new technology, you can have
All right, and I hope that wasn't too long, but I've watched that video like 3 times in the past week because I enjoy it so much. Because if a picture is worth 100 words, then a video must be worth 1,000 or something like that. Because you can actually see it happen to Henry. You can see that he's really not even able to hold a conversation. He's really disengaged from the world, and then they're able to play some music for him, and he's able to talk about music and what he likes, and he's able to sing, and he's able to scat like Cab Calloway. I mean, it's very impressive. So I'm glad that we got to watch that. The visual arts can be another great medium for helping people with dementia. Some examples include programs like Drawing on Memories, art museum tours. Sometimes Drawing on Memories includes an art museum tour. Sometimes it's just a drawing group drawing project. Other participatory art projects, such as sculpting classes, also seem to be beneficial. Anytime we're in a group together, working on this art projects together seems to be positive. And research has associated these visual arts interventions with positive effects on mood, alleviating depression, greater well-being, and greater quality of life. And like we saw with Louise, it also can offer people opportunities for self-expression if they're no longer able to communicate through language. Dance and dementia is, it's not been as extensively studied as some other art forms, but it does seem like it has a lot of benefits for people as well. One example of a program that incorporated dance and dementia, it's a musical theater production they called Smile, which was an ensemble performance that included people with dementia who regularly attend dance sessions, which I've not watched it, but I think it's on YouTube, so you can also find that as another great example. And drama can also be a powerful tool for facilitating connection with people. When we use improv techniques and other drama techniques to connect, enables us to be with the person in the moment and create meaningful connection, whereas otherwise, sometimes our tendency is to focus on the past when we're talking with our loved ones. But that can be difficult for people with dementia. If we're like, oh, don't you remember when this happened? Well, they probably don't remember the things that happened in the past. But if we can be with them in that moment and connect with them creatively, that can be really impactful. And so Time Slips is one nationwide organization that's a nonprofit that helps educate people on how they can connect creatively with their person who's living with dementia. And then Improv for Caregivers is another program that happens throughout the country where they basically partner with improv groups to help teach caregivers these methods to connect. And I know we've had it in Tulsa at some point. I don't know if we've had it in Oklahoma City, but these sometimes come around, and so those are great workshops to attend as well. We'll just briefly watch this video. You may have seen this video. It went pretty viral a few years ago. It's the former prima ballerina of the New York Ballet, and she is now living with dementia, and she gives a performance of Swan Lake. And so I thought we would include this here just because it's another really good visual example of the power of music and dance. Right. And so, yeah, just another great example. To me, it reminds me a lot of Henry, where, you connect this person with something that was important to them when they were younger, something they really connected with, and you find that they're still in there. They still connect with that thing. And I think that's, just another example of why it's so important that we incorporate the arts in the care of people with dementia. The last example I will talk about is poetry and dementia. Some examples of this include Art for Dementia, their poetry program. And the Alzheimer's Poetry Project, you can find their website. That's a really interesting program as well. And I included this little snippet from the Alzheimer's Society UK website, just to give you an example of what some of that poetry looks like. And it's just very interesting to me because even though, if they aren't, they're struggling with their ability to use words and language. And so it can be a little bit hard to understand, but they're still conveying the emotion. They're still expressing themselves. And I think that's one of the things that's so valuable. All right, so now we've talked a little bit about all of the examples for examples that you can do to bring arts to people living with dementia. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative, and then I will pass it over to my colleague, Diane. But the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative is the program that I coordinate. We are funded by BOLD, which is it's a federal legislation. It stands for Building Our Largest Dementia Infrastructure Act. It was passed in 2018. Here in Oklahoma, we are in our second iteration of the BOLD grant. We are implementing this act throughout Oklahoma, and so we're trying to create dementia infrastructure. We're trying to essentially I say we have three main goals. We want to help raise awareness for brain health and help people learn about what they can do to reduce the risk of developing dementia as they age. We want to help healthcare providers and the workforce in general be more prepared to deal with the needs of people living with dementia, because even though we already have a lot of people with this disease right now, this problem is only going to get bigger as our population continues to age and continues to develop this disease more prevalently. And third, we want to support caregivers because we know that caregivers are really the people who are, they're impacted just as much, if not more, than the people who's actually living with the disease. And they're also the front line for public health. They're the people who are providing the most care to people with dementia and keeping them out of long-term care and keeping them out of hospitals and things like that. So we definitely want to support the caregivers too. We do have a statewide coalition of people who meet, we are quarterly, and then we also have work groups that meet bi-monthly to try to work on developing the goals of the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative Coalition. If you're interested in joining our coalition, we do have 5 work groups, which are public policy, workforce development, public education, data and surveillance, and dementia-friendly Oklahoma. We're also in charge. We're charged with maintaining and updating the Oklahoma state plan to address Alzheimer's disease. You'll see here the previous state plan went from 2018 to 2022, and then our current state plan goes until 2027. And if you're interested in joining the coalition, we would definitely love to have more people from the arts sector involved, especially considering how beneficial the arts can be for people living with dementia and their families. So we would love to have you. If you aren't able to scan this QR code right away, don't worry. I think we're going to send the slides out and a recording, and then you can also get in touch with me through Erica or Diane or anybody else, and then I'll be happy to send you the information as well. One other thing, a resource that might be of interest for you all, especially if you do start doing more dementia programming in the community. Dementia Friendly Oklahoma is a really useful hour-long education program that we also provide that essentially teaches you about how to recognize somebody when you might be dealing with a client that might have dementia, and how to engage and respond to that person in a helpful way. And we also talk about, making sure that your business environment is dementia friendly and supporting caregivers. And so if you're going to start doing a lot of programming for people with dementia, and this is not something that you're familiar with, Dementia Friendly Oklahoma might be a really good resource for you. Also, whenever we're talking about dementia, I always want to end by talking about a lot of the resources that we have throughout the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative Coalition. If you're a family caregiver or a professional and you're struggling to find some resource or meet the needs of a person living with dementia, please reach out to us. We'll help you get we'll help you get connected with the right people. And, even if we aren't the right people, we'll find the right people for you to connect with. The Area Agencies on Aging are another great resource as well. They'll help you get connected with all the other resources in your area too. There are the references for anybody who would like to take a look at those later. And you can always email us questions at healthybrain@health.ok.gov. And now I will pass it over to Diane.
Thank you so much, Jacob. That was a fantastic presentation. And I am just grateful for you sharing these resources. Also, thank you for showing the videos. It was really impactful to see that. I am going to hand the mic, take it from Jacob, and then hand it to Diane. Diane Powell is here with the Alzheimer's Association, the Oklahoma chapter. And Diane, if you are ready, I am going to hand the mic to you.
I think I'm ready. Can you see my slides properly and not speaking notes?
It looks great.
Okay, awesome. I am so happy to be here with each of you today. And as Erica and Jacob both said, my name is Diane Powell, and I'm the Outreach Program Coordinator for the Oklahoma chapter of Alzheimer's Association. And wasn't Jacob's information great? Just like Erica said, I always learn something every time I listen to him. And I'm lucky to volunteer with the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative Coalition, as well as the Dementia Friendly Oklahoma. And he also volunteers for the Alzheimer's Association. So we're very lucky in both ways because we are both interested in serving our families that have been affected by dementia. And also, I'm excited to learn about the talents that each of you have that are on the call. So if you wouldn't mind taking a minute and putting in the chat some of your talents, because I know many of you are talented in many ways, just so we can get to know you and what your special talent is on the chat. On this opening slide, these are some of my favorite people. And one of my favorite quotes is, "One person can make a difference and everyone should try," by John F. Kennedy. Again, I'm a volunteer at heart. So it's really important just to give your time. So again, thank you for giving this time to me, and we'll go to the next slide. So Jacob covered a lot of things, but I also wanted just to cover what the Alzheimer's Association does. And we lead the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction, early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. And so we work together with Jacob in getting that quality person-centered care and supporting those caregivers. You saw a lot of the facts that in his slides as well, but one I want to point out is the lifetime risk of someone at age 45. So women in the audience, 1 in 5, and 1 in 10 for men. So again, this is affecting and touching too many people. Again, he went over how expensive it is. So it's a disease that we want to get rid of. We want to solve it and cure it. The association is the world's leading nonprofit funder of Alzheimer's and dementia research. Currently, we have over $430 million currently active with over 1,100 projects in 56 countries. And again, this is a global issue, not just a local issue. To also reiterate what Jacob said, the reducing the risk for dementia, I want to say being physically active, seeking treatment for depression, staying socially engaged, getting your hearing loss treated are so important facts. And so we have even heard, this is scientifically, that 40% of dementia could be prevented with these 10 healthy habits for your brain and body. So again, thinking about a magic pill, staying active and socially engaged are so important. And that's what we're doing today. Also, we're going to talk about caregivers. So again, the caregivers that are unpaid, it's again, so expensive, but there are more than 60% of individuals that will be cared for at home. So the care and the arts and all those different programs that are out in the community are so important for those caregivers and that person with the dementia. And when we talk about caregivers, we're thinking 2/3 are more women and at least 1/3 are daughters. Caregiving is very stressful. It has an impact on living. It has an impact on those families. So again, comparing it to another disease, dementia, caregivers are twice as likely to have substantial emotional, financial, and physical difficulties. We also want to talk about the work of caregiving at work. So 57% of caregivers had to go in or come in late to work. 9% had to quit their jobs entirely, which that also meant they lost their job benefits. 8% had to turn down a promotion. They couldn't travel. They had to, again, care for a loved one. And how we help is we've got a 24/7 helpline. Again, we've got up to 200 different languages that can be translated. We have master's level clinicians available, and everything we do is free for education and support. Now you're probably asking, how can you help? So you can help us share your story, be an advocate, get your group or organization to learn about Dementia Friendly, learn about our Alzheimer's Walk to End Alzheimer's, get the resources out to your friends and neighbors, reducing that fear and stigma. Many people whisper, I've got dementia or I've got Alzheimer's, and no one runs to do those meals. When they stand up in a Sunday school class or another thing that they're going through radiation or chemotherapy for cancer, you rush to, what can I do? How can I help? And so for so many families with dementia or Alzheimer's dementia, they keep it quiet, and we need to talk about it more. And so that's my encouragement to get involved. And so we have many people that, again, when they get connected with us, they have thoughts of, I want to help someone. I wish I knew about the Alzheimer's Association earlier. I want to help an organization that is got a high impact. Or I just hate this disease and I want to do something. And so with your talents, we want to find that right volunteer opportunity for you. And for the first thing, it's just volunteer, just do it. And we can do it in a variety of ways, 1 hour, 1 day, once, it doesn't matter. It will make an impact, and we're happy to give you all kinds of training, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But I did want to show some pictures of some communities that I'm familiar with, and they have a great time. You can see it on their face. Again, thinking about dancing, music, yoga drumming, poetry, reading, all those different activities, floral arrangements. Jacob talked about the Tulsa Opera. So again, if you look at some of their faces, they're having a great time. And it's because you're sharing the arts, and it's very important. The Memory Cafe in Oklahoma or in Tulsa, they had the Scottish games, and they had the bagpipes coming. So again, it's a great place to come, relax, and enjoy yourself. I also have a short video about improv. And if you look at some of their faces, they're having a great time. And it's because you're sharing the arts, and it's very important. The Memory Cafe in Oklahoma or in Tulsa, they had the Scottish games, and they had the bagpipes coming. So again, it's a great place to come, relax, and enjoy yourself. I also have a short video about improv.
A nice crisp day like today, and they're slowly floating in, yes.
Improv is all about saying yes.
It's just fun, just to show up and see what happens. It's very spontaneous.
Yes to letting go, making silly faces, speaking gibberish. And in this class at Seattle's Taproot Theater, yes to reigniting the mind.
We're doing a little bit of early stage memory loss improv class. They come in maybe holding on to some tightness, maybe feeling like they don't have an outlet or not sure how to interact with people. And coming in here, we basically just say, that's fine out there, but in here, whatever you have to offer in the moment is perfect. And then you offer a pizza.
Rob Martin leads the class. He tosses out an idea, and off we go.
We're waking up. We truly are waking up the brain at that point. Those synapses are starting to fire in different ways. So there's more verbal, there's more joining in, even for those who are a little bit more reticent, or perhaps they're a little bit further along as far as the memory loss progression goes.
Come on in. Pam Nolte helped start the program in 2010. She didn't know what it would look like at the time, but she knew she had to say yes after losing her own mother to Alzheimer's disease.
For me, it gives me a second chance to give my students what I wish I had given my mom. And it's not just I'm still here, it's that I'm still here with an abundance of joy and laughter and ability to be present in fabulous ways in the world.
And the fun doesn't stop when the class ends. Pam says the progress made in one class can last days.
They're going home with partners who had a great time and succeeded in something, learned something new, found new friends, and they're in a whole different place mentally as far as just quality of life goes.
So I think that's pretty cool. And how you can get involved with the Alzheimer's Association is going to alz.org/volunteer. You can apply for an early stage engagement or a community representative. There's online videos, and the onboarding process is really easy. We do a background check and a conflict of interest, but most of all, we want our volunteers to be willingness to be a resource for the caregivers and the families. And we have a walk in September, and we aren't stopping at this, trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's, and I hope you'll join us. Here's my contact information, and then we're going to pass it off to Erica and the panel.
Thank you, Diane. That was also an amazing presentation. I really appreciate you informing us how to get involved, how to serve, how to be a part of this movement that you are at the leading edge of. So Diane, thanks for your service and thanks for sharing. Also, really loved that video of the improv session, really powerful. So I am going to introduce our panel. And I'm going to share my screen to show you their names and also photos of their work. And folks on the panel, give me a thumbs up if you can see the slide pretty good. No script? Great. We're fumbling around with that earlier. I was. Okay, wonderful. So I am going to introduce each of them. We've got 3 folks on the panel, and then we'll bring in Diane and Jacob also to have this conversation. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about their work. We've got Meg Chang. Meg Chang is a lifelong dancer and certified kinetic awareness teacher who is dedicated to the practice of creativity and body-mind wellness for adults. She currently teaches in Lesley University's low residency graduate dance movement therapy program. As a state licensed dance movement therapist, she has experience in private and group psychotherapy with a range of groups, including psychiatric patients, housebound older adults, UN peacekeepers in Kosovo, and support groups for domestic violence survivors. She designed and co-wrote a nonverbal communication training manual to strengthen relationships between caregivers and their loved ones living with dementia. Besides providing another way to express and communicate, dance movement therapy stimulates creativity, enhances self-esteem, improves physical coordination and flexibility, and benefits body, mind, and emotional connections. That's Meg. We'll hear from her and the rest of them. I want to introduce also and tell you about Jacqueline Nelson. She is an experienced art teacher who specializes in painting, drawing, and ceramics. Jackie Nelson strives to create a classroom environment where students can explore their creativity, express themselves, and develop a deep sense of self-confidence. She holds a certification as a visual arts instructor in Oklahoma schools, and she began teaching in 2007 and has since collaborated with several public schools and private institutions to deliver arts education to a wide spectrum of individuals. And as of November 2023, Jackie has worked as a teaching artist with Oklahoma City Museum of Art, providing enriching art making experiences for a variety of audiences, both on and off site. So this includes developing and leading art making classes for touring groups, providing a wide range of classes for children and adults, and offering those living with Alzheimer's and dementia a chance to connect with arts and one another through their monthly Making Memories program. And with Jackie is Mary Thoma, who is also a part of the Making Memories program at the museum. Mary is a passionate and dedicated professional in the field of creative aging with a career spanning nearly 2 decades. She has served as the recreational activities coordinator at the Eastern Oklahoma County Tech Adult Day Center since 2006, where she facilitates enriching programs for older adults. Mary is a working artist and a teaching artist, using the arts as a tool to foster creativity, connection, and personal growth among individuals who are aging. And she is also an opening minds through art facilitator. That's a program that empowers individuals with dementia to express themselves through visual art. Mary holds certifications as an Oklahoma State Certified Activities and Social Services Director, as well as a degree in Fine Arts from the University of Central Oklahoma, so she combines her deep knowledge of the arts with her extensive experience in senior care to make a lasting impact of the lives of older adults. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'll open it up to the panel. So that was an introduction to our artists. And I just want to acknowledge, thank you, Diane, for inviting people to share where they're coming from and their experience. And I was able to see some folks I know, but reminded that we do have a variety of arts practitioners in this space. And we saw some examples from our presentations, but we're going to hear now about some firsthand experience running these kinds of programs. So I have some prepared questions. I really hope that as it comes to you, you also, you chime in. You could take yourself off mute or put it in the chat, but please do ask away. But I'm going to start out with a question for everyone to respond to. How did you become involved in creative aging programs, especially those that are focusing on people with dementia and or Alzheimer's?
Everybody's
go ahead.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I've been an artist and a person who's been taking care of elders for, I'm sorry to change the script here, for about 50 years now, not just 2 decades. I've only been at this job 2 decades. This particular job, okay? So, but the big dovetail moment for me was looking at a website. Let's see, the National Guild for Community Arts has a special dedicated program for seniors and for arts and aging. And I saw a few videos, and it's just kind of like the light bulb moment. Oh my gosh, all my dreams have come true. Somebody's been able to connect the dots between arts and aging and how powerful it is. And it's like I've been on that bandwagon for years, waiting for everybody to catch up, So anyway, that was about 20 years ago. So there you have it.
Well, I could just volunteer that I similarly started out as a caregiver for my mother. And as she was progressing into dementia, because I'm a dance movement therapist and I'm familiar with the work, the really valuable work that dance and music and art have contributed, I asked a friend of mine to come and do a training in nonverbal communication using basically dance and movement for caregivers and also for the residents at my mom's facility. And it really was very heartwarming and touching and all the things you said, Jacob. It's just like, oh, right, check, 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 you know. So I think I just got drawn into it because it really opened a door for me into what's possible at all the levels because of being a family member. I mean, that was really my role. So that's how I got involved in it.
Hi. I think I got involved with it whenever I started at the art museum, an official capacity of taking over the Making Memories program, where we go to facilities and work with people who are living with dementia or Alzheimer's, and have been doing that. But even before that, when I think back on it, it really started when my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and me just doing art with her without any really knowledge of knowing, oh, we're doing this because we want to see this result. It was more just something I could share with her and that we could do together. And that's been a long time since my grandmother was with me and we did that. But I really feel like that's kind of where maybe my idea of how to approach it, how to do it came from. And when I was with my grandmother, we went into it with the assumption of, well, she could do it. It may not be how I do it. It doesn't have to be how I do it. That's how is with art all together in general. That's what makes it so unique and wonderful to share with anyone of any age and any capability. So that's kind of where I started in on.
Yeah, and I'm not an artist, but the reason I kind of got involved with this when I was working at the Alzheimer's Association in community outreach, and one of our local arts organizations in Tulsa, the Waterworks Art Center, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we used to have this program called Drawing on Memories, where we would do art projects for groups of people with dementia. Do you want to get that started again?" And I was like, "I don't know anything about that, but I'll learn a little bit about it." And I ended up going and volunteering every time they would do it for several months, and I got to see firsthand the joy that it brings. And so that's sort of how I got, like, that's when I realized, like, oh, this is pretty important.
Well, and I'll wrap this up, this question. My sister is a administrator in senior housing communities, and she was with a group that had TBI, so traumatic brain injuries, about 20 years ago. And we had a couple of residents that had brain trauma. And when you got their song singing, they were nonverbal. They'd been nonverbal for years. But when their song came on, they could sing it word for word for word. And it was just, again, so enlightening and so wonderful that, you just wanted to have that song play on repeat all day. But I think that's where it started for me. And then getting employed with Alzheimer's Association, again, going out to the communities and seeing firsthand the impact that activities and the engagement do play. And again, that's why there is memory care, because it's the activities. It's not just staying at home, and it's not long-term care. And memory care is the benefits of social engagement and activities. And so those at home really need the help to do these activities. They just, they're just doing so much caregiving. They can't think about, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to get my paints out. And so having these programs and having them available, and that's where, again, this audience, if they want to share their talents, we want to plug them in so they can share their talents, because it would be so valuable. So again, thank you.
Thank you. So we were we were shown some videos that demonstrated how people are reconnecting with memories through art. And I want to ask our program folks today on the panel, what are the ways that you've seen and observed the arts help people reconnect with their emotions, with their memories, which would have otherwise been inaccessible due to memory loss? And so, drawing upon your experience with your programs, can you share a little bit about what you've experienced?
Well, hopefully to answer that question there, one of the things I've seen whenever we've done some art projects with individuals, one that had a significance to me because of flowers are just so important to me. We were doing a floral project and a participant was engaged in it and painting flowers. And when I asked her, oh, which one's your favorite, or why did you do this one? And she talked about how she could remember doing gardening and when she was younger, and how much those flowers she enjoyed having them, and anytime she smells them she thinks about when she was younger and in the garden, or when she sees them, and just it brought up all those memories for her. And she talked about all her senses being involved in it, from from seeing the colors, smelling the flowers, feeling the dirt in her hands, all those things. And it really seemed to make an impact for her, and talking about them, enjoyed talking about it so much.
Well, I have a memory actually so my colleague and friend Donna Newman came into my mom's facility, and she would run groups as well as do the training. And so we had a group with, and Donna we always use very music that fits the particular group that we're with. And just as everybody said, there was one woman, not my mother, but another woman in the group, that as soon as songs from the 40s and 50s came on, she immediately remembered everything. And it was, everybody was like, oh my gosh, she can speak, because of course she was completely mute the rest of the time. But what was really heartbreaking, I have to say, and this is where I think we're really in need of having this, the arts in this care much, much more integrated and normalized, is that, the group was over and we went off, and this poor woman was walking around trying to sing to people, and it was just like, it was really sad, because she wanted to engage in this way that she could engage, and everybody was sort of like, turning away from her. So I feel like, I mean, not to bring up the other side of it, but there is a way, I think, that we need to make the bridge and the link, and I think something like this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Oh, sorry, I was just, a great
That's
point
all
about
right.
normalizing it. That's awesome. Thank you, Meg.
I just wanted to share with you an experience that I had with a wonderful singer playing bingo. And it was a struggle for her to call back her bingo numbers. But if I said, Daisy, will you sing them back to me? She could sing them back in this beautiful soprano voice when she couldn't call them back. And it just delighted everyone.
So, what role do caregivers play in these programs? And how can arts organizations and teaching artists best support their experience and their journey with their loved one?
Well, I think just briefly, when we're talking about implementing these kind of art programs for people, one of the important things to remember is that we'll want it to be person-centered. Meet that person's needs, and if they've never been a music person, they might not be a music person now, but they might really respond to drawing or something else. And so it's good to talk with the caregiver and get that person's personal history, find out about their preferences and what they like and don't like, because then they'll be able to help you make that program more tailored. And then also, hopefully the caregiver, depending on the situation, might be actually able to participate in the art project with the person with dementia. And then that gives them something they can do together care that's actually a fun activity and not just something that is kind of the sad regular activities of daily care.
And I would just say, again, the memory cares, assisted livings, they're going to be protective of their residents. And so that's why we want a way for you to share your talent is becoming a volunteer, because then you're representing the Alzheimer's Association and you can go do your talent and we'll open that door and do it for other places. Otherwise, you have to just go visit your family member and then, oh, by the way, let me share this talent with the other people in the community. But if you aren't affected or that's not where you are at this time, they're really not going to let volunteers just come off and do one thing. They may let church groups come do a worship service or something, but they're really not going to open the door and let you do any kind of art or music program without being vetted. And again, it's a safety issue. So again, just thinking about that, that's just another reason why you want to be connected with an organization to say, let me offer this service. And again, knowing what to expect and being familiar with that population, again, person-centered care.
And you asked about, how we can help the caregivers. One thing we definitely try to do with our program is have the caregiver participate as much as we can with making the project, like you said. That way they get to have some joy, a little bit of a respite from what maybe their normal daily schedule is. It lets them see that the person that they're caring for has a creative outlet, maybe tells them or teaches them something that they didn't know before with how they can connect with that. And then also the joy that it gives to the caregiver. And it just gives an alternative way for them to interact with each other that's both positive and fulfilling.
Yeah, second all those things. It's there's such a kind of commonality here, which is really about shifting focus, I think, from verbal to nonverbal and all the ways we can be symbolic with people. So it's going into another part of my brain when I'm doing that. And I actually, because we went into my mom's facility and worked with caregivers, because we were doing a training program, I just like to share, to me, I love this picture because not only is it me and my mother, but it has the professional caregivers in the background. And I think that, can you all see this? Is it up? No?
There it is.
There it is. Okay, thank you. So this is my friend and colleague. And, this is a very characteristic position, like gesture of my mother's, but it's also, she's communicating. There's my mother had lost her language, but there's obviously a communication. But the thing that I love is that these two people who are on the floor every day dealing with things, they were getting engaged too. And I just feel like that's to me like one of the, when we were able to be there, it really, we were demonstrating ways that you can use alternate ways to communicate to bridge that gap. And I don't know, some of the things we were talking, the personhood part. So, it's like suddenly the person with dementia who's been such a problem suddenly becomes a really interesting person, and they're I don't know, there's something about their inner being that seems to blossom more. And I think that's very important, really, because it gives us all more potential. And so I just wanted to say the other part too is I think we do the arts, the arts are very important and they're the vehicle, and I think they're the way into the brain actually, because of all the ways the parts of the brain that are affected. But I also think that we can look at this as a 24-hour kind of communication. So again, just speaking from the perspective of the body and being matching people, if we can go in with a physical attitude of communicating, not with words, but communicating physically, either by, and now the people who do this work are nodding, right? You know, you're not going to go up and just like come right in somebody's face. That's not a good idea. You know, maybe you come up like sideways. And I feel like these are the kinds of things that really, and I'm sure the Alzheimer's Association does this in all of your work, but it's really a way to kind of extend, I think, this arts part by using more creative interventions to really have, I mean, for caregivers who are there all the time, to really help them just have a way of feeling like they're more present with the person. So it doesn't become like a patient, you know, patient expert kind of relationship.
I want to share that we have regular impromptu dance parties where I work. Yesterday, somebody said, "Can we listen to some dance music?" We did Uptown Funk. I mean, you name it, we did it. Gosh, I can't even think of the name of all the. Some of them had a Latin beat, and I have a Hispanic lady who's very sedentary. She got up and shook her stuff. I mean, it was great. It was so much fun, and you have to be open to diverting to what engages all the time. So thank you for bringing that up.
So what are the some common challenges or misconceptions when it comes to implementing art programs for people with dementia? And how are you addressing them? How can we address them in our programs?
I think one of the ones I've seen is the misconception is that people think people with dementia or Alzheimer's can't remember the steps to do something, or they can't do it. And so one of the ways that I know I try to approach that and keep that in mind is that I have simple to follow steps that are short and brief, that kind of scaffolding type teaching where we do step one and then maybe wait a little bit, go up to step two, having visual cues that people can see as well as those verbal cues that they can hear, and trying to be flexible and low pressure with what we're doing are ways that I try to overcome that misconception that just because they have Alzheimer's or dementia that they can't do it, but yes, they can.
Yeah, that's a really good point that we can adapt the activities. And then sometimes I also worry about stigma being a barrier towards implementing these type of programs. I think there's a lot of misconception around people with dementia. I think a lot of people think that people with dementia, they have a misconception that they're always going to be mean or aggressive or scary. And I think that's really not the case when you get them in art programs, as we've seen. You know, you're probably going to be seeing them at their best when you're in programs like this. But I do think that stigma does cause a little bit of hesitancy in artists and even maybe the facilities allowing artists to come in as well.
And that question for me, I went straight to the cost as a challenge because you have to have all these supplies or something like that. And in most cases, you don't need that many supplies. You can reuse them, or again, it's low cost to get one player to do certain things. And again, it's getting the volunteer and getting the people engaged. And so again, it takes more than one person to lead with somebody with dementia, because again, you need to have a few more hands on deck to help. But again, having volunteers and trained volunteers to help, I think that's, that can help solve that problem.
One of the places where you can recruit volunteers is colleges, because there's a bunch of students who need those community service hours toward not a grant, scholarship. Yeah, a scholarship to look good so that they can win that scholarship, high school and college students. And I've had a great deal of success with both. And then there was something else I was going to add into that right there. The other side of that is using materials that are readily accessible. I can turn around right now behind me and grab cereal boxes that I have collected to make construction materials for three-dimensional art. And that's cereal boxes that people would otherwise put in the trash. And our contribution is paint and glue, you know. So, I mean, you just have to use your imagination a great deal sometimes to come up with supplies and make it fun, make it easy on everybody, including your administration, figure out ways not to spend money and still have a great time, and usually come up with an even better end product.
I want to add that Piper, thank you for your comment. Contact your local art agency for supply support. There could be grants. There could be supplies are definitely an allowable expense. So thank you, Piper, who's representing Missouri's Arts Council. Thank you very much for that. We've heard about the organizations that Jacob and Diana are representing. Can the two of you talk a little bit, and also the panel who have worked with these organizations, can you talk about how to build strong partnerships with healthcare providers and with organizations like yours so that they can create more comprehensive support for people with dementia? What does that avenue look like?
I think for a lot of people who are like, healthcare providers and health systems, they haven't even heard of this. They haven't even considered it. And so I think you all, like, maybe this is a good first step. We've started the conversation about arts and dementia, for at least among this group. And, a great way to get further involved for those who are interested would be maybe to join the Oklahoma Healthy Brain Initiative Coalition. Because when Erica joined our coalition, she got the chance to present to all of our group about, creative aging and grants. And we've had a very strong partnership since. And so I think that's a great way is to come and present to our coalition, tell people, because we have a lot of healthcare providers, we have a lot of senior service providers, and tell them about what you're doing. And I think that's a great way to start, just starting these conversations initially.
And I would echo that, just getting involved and contacting Jacob or I and sharing what you can do, and we'll get you going. Again, if we can share some education, if we can, again, share your information about what you want to do, I mean, we'll work around it and try to, really make the awareness there, because again, I think we're on the first step, but there's lots of communities and lots of rural areas. So again, we want this to touch all 77 counties in Oklahoma, not just Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Right.
And so recruiting and knowing what you have to offer and how we can partner is really what we want to do, and how it can translate to other communities and what they can do, so that we can be a model for those rural counties that don't have all the bells and whistles and all the touch to everything that we have in these bigger cities.
Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking about this ever since you posed that question, Erica, in our sort of pre-webinar talk. And I think in order to really educate people, I think if we could do some sort of like best practices kinds of grants and begin to disseminate a little bit more information. So we'd both be helping people in the communities, but then we'd also be doing some research on what happens to the participants, the caregivers, maybe the community. And I feel like the two parts I'm most interested in are the sort of like, sort of healthy aging type people like me. And that, so like, how do we maintain that at this, and can the arts be helpful with that? Because I think that's a place that, Mary, I want to come to your groups. That's a place I think that we can begin to really build and reinforce what we already have. And then of course, on the other side, we have like the people with really advanced dementia. And I think that's again, where the arts are really necessary. So I sort of feel like those are the two places that I'd love to do some research on that, because I think there is actually a lot of research in dance and drama of working with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as music therapy, because music therapy has always had some great research and art also. But I don't know, that's in my day job, that's what I like to do. So that would be fun.
I want to give you a little 1-minute story, a little before and after. When I took my training to become an OMA facilitator, Opening Minds Through Art, I was assigned someone on the Alzheimer's Special Care Unit who was very agitated, very anxious. She was no longer walking on her own. She was in a wheelchair and leaning over and grabbing everyone, saying, "Hey, take me home, take me home, take me home." Every place she could grab, she was grabbing. We've met those people if you've worked in long-term care. And shrieking at them and grabbing after them. And she had a baby doll in her lap, turned upside down, face down on her lap. She was just clutching him and grabbing with the other arm, and then every once in a while scooting her wheelchair. And that's where we started. We went through our class making memories, not making memories, Opening Minds Through Art. And the class involves a lot of autonomy on the part of the resident participant, and the facilitator, the volunteer sitting next to them, basically gives them choices. Okay, do you want the black background, a white background? Do you want this color or that color? And so you go through the process, and all of a sudden they're making all these choices and all these applications and designing an artwork with a little bit of a framework under it. And the results, if I hadn't have seen them myself, I would have thought, somebody's pulling my leg. This can't possibly be true. The lady I was describing to you afterwards, her words were this. She goes, "Well, I'll be damned. I am an artist." And then she turned her shoulder to me and she says, "You can, if you want to, you know." And so she sees a group standing in front of us and they're talking, and she said, "Did they see my work?" And I said, "Well, I'll get it to their attention." So I called to them and asked them to turn around, and I held her work up and I said, "Anna wanted me to show you this." And they go, "Oh," and I'm telling you, the transformation was just so completely diametrically the opposite of this poor shrieking person hollering, "Take me home." She was so proud of her work. She was so proud of herself. She had some self-esteem. She had some autonomy opportunity, and it made her day. And I'm sure that that went on for the rest of the evening, and they were probably very relieved not to have them grabbing their clothes, having her grab their clothes. But she just went from that sad, furrowed brow to just beaming like a lit Christmas tree in just short order. And if like I said, if I hadn't have seen the transformation, I would have said, "You're making it up." So there you go. That's a really good persuasive story, by the way.
That's a great story. Well, we only have a few minutes left, but I do want to ask one more question. So in this space today, we have, I believe the majority of us are arts practitioners or running programs in their communities, teaching art. And I wonder what kind of advice could you give us to speak to the person who has an arts program, an arts education program, and would like to expand this work to include people with dementia and their caregivers. What advice would you give them? How to get started? Or just
Was
some
that
words
for
of
Diane and
advice.
I? Sorry, it was.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm just putting it out to the group, and I'm thinking of making memories. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, they just died. Yeah, for all of you, how to get started. You already have an arts program. You have it at your museum or your theater company. How would you? Hello.
Oh, we hear you. We
Oh
lost
my,
you for a second, but you're
that
back
was
now.
weird. I just rebooted. Okay, anyway, go. words of advice. If someone would like to do this work, what would you tell them?
I think it's helpful to remember that you can build a program that focuses more on ability over disability. Focus on what they can do and what you can do, and don't focus on what they can't do anymore.
I think just like, just like any other, kind of field or industry, there's sort of like a community of senior serving individuals and, like long-term care communities in Tulsa and in Oklahoma City. And I think trying to find ways to get integrated within that community, like in Tulsa, there's the Tulsa Interagency Council, that you can go to and tell people about your programs. And that's a great way to connect with other senior serving organizations. But like connecting with the other organizations in the community, not just me and Alzheimer's Association, but all of them, especially those that are like associations of people who are providing direct care services to people with dementia. I think that can be really helpful, just getting plugged in.
Thank you for that advice. We have shared many resources in the chat. Also, thank you, Piper, that you've been very productive in our chat. Thank you so much. I've shared links to a website and to a manual that Meg has been a part of the creation of and of this work. So please access those resources. We will be sharing these links, this recording, the slide decks with everyone in a follow-up email. And I believe I know we're at time, but are there any burning questions, comments? We've really used our time up. Well, this has been great.
I do
Thank
see
you.
one question
Oh, we
from
got a question?
Mr. or the Jeep in the chat. What kind of mental health staffing support does an artist need to manage the flood of emotions? Is this brief orientation sufficient? That's a really good question. I think this is a great place to start, but maybe like one thing that might be helpful would be like a class on like communication and behavior for people with dementia. I think that's always good. If you're going to be spending any amount of time with people with dementia, I think that's always really helpful to have that background knowledge.
That's a really great question, and thank you for that response, Jacob. Well, appreciate you all being here today and for giving us an extra minute. We will be in touch soon. I'm going to be inviting you to another webinar coming up in May with Dr. Tomeno from the Music and Memories program. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for your work. Thank you so much.
Erica.
All right. See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.